Shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Welcome to the Hebrew Woman Show. And I'm simulcasting live on both channels because we're just picking up where we left off with this whole Ryan Clark situation. We're going to finish the series on out. And the reason why I'm circling back because it was brought to my attention, and whether it's you view it wasn't intentional. Well, initially we did a review of the Ryan Clark interview on Pivot Podcast. And then I reviewed Cam Newton's take on what Shady McCoy said. And so, to the point, it is fair to play the video. And so, we're actually going to play the video and review the conversation that was had on the podcast on Speakeasy podcast. So, but of course, before we even get into that, one of the things we always do on the Sabbath is we have the Hebrew Woman Show. This is the time that we take to dedicate our time to bringing forth lessons from a spiritual perspective for women of faith. So the purpose of the Hebrew Woman channel is for us to explore our biblical principles. And this is a Torah guided channel, not here on the Renaissance Woman Show, but on the actual Hebrew Woman Show. If you are not following the Hebrew Woman Show, please like, share, and subscribe to that channel. And we come every Sabbath. I'm late today, but I literally try my best to do a show every Sabbath. And the purpose of that channel is so that we can examine ourselves. 2 Corinthians 13:5 says, examine yourselves, whether it be of the faith. Prove your own selves, know you not your own selves, how that Christ is in you, except you be reprobate. So the whole purpose, whether we're talking about leadership, whether we're talking about what's going on culturally, societally, our purpose is not just to be voyeurs and point fingers at what different people are doing. It is so that we can examine ourselves and correct our own behavior. And so that's what we do here. We train ourselves to think biblically and not emotionally. It's not that we're saying we shouldn't have emotions, but we know that, for example, Ephesians 4:26, the Bible tells us to be angry but sin not, and let the sun not go down on your wrath. We are to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves, and be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. That's Matthew 10:16. And so basically, there is a theme to the Hebrew Woman Show where we cover these main slides for every show because that is the foundation that's my foundation. That's my guiding star. And as I strive to be a woman of Titus, do I get it right every day? Absolutely not. But I do my best, and I do my best to do what? Speak things that become sound doctrine. I do my best to do what number 2 says, that the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith and charity. And the aged woman likewise, that they be in behavior that becometh holiness. Not false accusers, not given to too much wine, but teachers of good things. I want to be a teacher of good things. One of the things that I try to talk about a lot, especially when we're talking about leadership, is just making sure if you're in a leadership position, no matter what you're doing, you should have wise counsel around you. And one of the traps that I see a lot of people in leadership get in is that they surround themselves with sycophants. They surround themselves with yes men, people who just gonna kiss their ass and tell them what they want to hear. In order to succeed and go far in any endeavor, it is of my opinion that you gotta have people around you who are going to tell you the truth, who are going to say the hard things to you so that you can course correct. Or you end up out here looking like Clarissa Shields, but that's a whole nother story. Maybe we'll get into that next Sabbath. But seek wise counsel. And Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law is happy. So we do our best to seek to keep the law, statutes, and commandments because our first assignment is kingdom and not comfort. And we have to understand, and I can say that I've learned personally as I go through my spiritual journey that when you stand on what you believe, when you stand up for what's right, it is not going to always have you in the most comfortable positions. You are going to go through things dealing with the people and the things of this world if you are a person trying to keep the word. If you try to follow that Bible, you're going to have some problems, even in the workplace. But it is always comforting to remember Philippians 3 and 20. We don't belong here. Our citizenship is in heaven and not this world. But so as we continue our leadership workshop series, I thought that the Brian Clark situation was really a beneficial conversation to have from the institutional perspective as far as watching how you engage with the system, right? And how structurally it is not built to be advantageous to the individual, to the family, to the worker. It is a corporate structure that is built to the benefit of the shareholders and the owners. And you see no greater example of that than in sports. And so for me, watching this whole thing play out, and another thing, being in the space here, especially particularly in the early days of the Renaissance Woman show, we encountered the Negro manosphere. And one of the things that I often heard people like Obsidian and some of the other fellows talk about was how black men were not supported in the community and talking about, and of course, you guys remember back, especially if you're around my age, the whole Michael Basin, the Men Cry in the Dark book and series, and just I would have thought that we would have been further along in conversation, particularly in black spaces where you see so many black men with podcasts now that I found Shady McCoy's commentary really surprising. And so it led me to, so I said, since I was going to go ahead and review Shady's, the podcast that he was on, that we have to get into the politics of tears, right? Because when we talk about Ryan Clark, Shady, and the Shady McCoy situation, I want to talk about whose pain gets believed. And when I play, I'm going to play the video. We're going to review it just like we reviewed Cam's video the other day. So, but a note before we begin: the views expressed on this channel are my own and my own only. They belong to that of myself and the channel. They do not represent the views of any employer, organization, agency, business, or other entities with which I may be affiliated with. This is commentary, not legal advice, or am I announcing any legal findings when I talk about topics on this show. If you are navigating a hostile work environment or any of these other situations that are discussed on this channel, please make sure you go and get legal representation. So basically, this shows our education, commentary, scriptural reflection, and it doesn't determine why Ryan Clark, ESPN ended Ryan Clark's employment. It is mainly for us to give a perspective from a worker's perspective of how we view, or I would say how I view the system and how it moves and how it treats its employees. Now, as far as Clark, I don't know if he's filing any type of legal suit or if he's making any claims of discrimination or retaliation. However, I'm just using these examples to illustrate how it often shows up and looks. And so when emotion becomes a fit, the conversation shifts from whether the pain was performed correctly. And that's what we see right here in this situation. When we get to the video, I just noticed how McCoy even says that, well, I know Clark, he's a media guy. And I'm like, well, you're a media guy too. So if we are going to, especially as black people, I feel like the dismissal of black pain and trauma is 10 times worse when it comes from your own people. Because if we can't get support and belief from our own, we're already not getting it from the system. We're already not getting empathy from those outside of our own community. So when somebody literally puts your tears and your pain and your traumas on trial on social media, it doesn't look right to me, and I just have a problem with it because especially when we're in this age where we are in real time watching the EEOC roll back all of these protections, and we are talking about and talking about meritocracy and how that we are going to basically judge people based on the metrics of their performance, and that is going to be totally exclusionary of race. Well, we know that that's not the reality that we live in, and the people that are pushing this meritocracy argument, when we look at how they're behaving, if we look at Pete Hegseth's behavior, if we look at the behavior of this administration, we don't see meritocracy. We see, for example, if it was just basically about the discrimination, the disparate treatment, there would not be a caveat. You literally have an ad and you're doing calls for white men who feel like it says if you are white, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm going to have to pull this for you guys. It is literally on the EEOC website where they're saying if you are white and you feel like you have experienced reverse discrimination, come and make a complaint. Yet we want to actually discriminate or be dismissive of the claims of minorities. You just can't make it up. It's almost like we're living in opposite days. So we're deciding whose pain gets treated as human and whose pain is treated as performance. And so to have another black man tell another black man that his pain was performative, I didn't like it. And to be fair, I did not watch the whole. I didn't watch the whole Speakeasy podcast. I just saw because that's what the part people were playing a lot was McCoy's just statement and diminishing of Clark. So I said, you know what? To be fair, we'll take a look at both. So the original Speakeasy conversation is what we're going to listen to, okay? And we'll examine what standards are being applied here. So let's ask. So just before we get into that, these are key questions that I thought would be beneficial to ask. What does McCoy treat as proof that Clark's tears were not real? Like, what is it? I want you all to listen to how he justifies his dismissal. Does the conversation stay with Clark's account or does it shift to his delivery? What is the same emotion being interpreted as if differently from somebody else? And that is my argument. And I said this when I reviewed the show. Had this been Tom Brady or somebody else sitting up here boo-hooing about something, it would be treated a lot different and it wouldn't be dismissed the way that it was with Clark. And so these three layers are what we're going to talk about for the public record. We saw the Pivot podcast. Clark became emotional and described his exit and experience at ESPN. And you know that one of my main issues and why I wanted to zero in on Clark's experience was that he was literally laying out, in my opinion, disparate treatment, but he wasn't calling it that. And I wanted to highlight that because I think a lot of workers get it wrong is that we talk about racism and discrimination without calling it racism and discrimination. And the reasons why we don't do that because we are often accused of pulling the race card. And that's what makes this whole situation so important to me is that you watch him literally lay out his treatment. What I saw was even workplace bullying and it not being spoke about or laid out in the way that it was, and how you can be targeted as an employee because a group of people don't like you. And it had nothing to do with your performance. It has everything to do with the politics of being liked, the politics of popularity, right? So his allegations are that he was targeted and that ESPN layoff concealed that decision and that the decision was already made. And when you listen to him give the account of how he knows that, right? If you'll remember a couple of shows back, we talked about the signs to look for when you know they're getting ready to get rid of you. The leaving you out of meetings, we forgot to add you. Oh, I thought you were on the email. That type of behavior, we just simply forgot. And not allowing him to participate in a certain commentary series or things that he would have participated in before. If you have experienced this type of ostracism and workplace mobbing and hostility or hostile work environments, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. And so that is why we're examining this. And so we're not declaring a motive on ESPN's part. We're just looking at the behavior and the parallels that it has to these workplace dynamics. So I want to talk about when we look at a lot of situations where people have been fired, terminated, or had unfortunate things happen to them at work. I feel like when certain groups of people tell their story, they receive compassion. Their pain is granted context. People want to know what happened. They want to hear the story. They want to try to understand. And the vulnerability is framed as honesty. He's just vulnerable. He was just he. I just really appreciated his vulnerability and how he was able to express that as a man. Certain men are allowed to express vulnerability. They're allowed to cry, but a dark skinned black male, well, I done seen everything from crybaby baby Clark, telling him to shut up, calling him bitches, all of that are things. And so now it's not just workplace bullying, it's turned to online bullying. And I will say this, having been on YouTube for a while and watched YouTube bullying go on, and that is a whole nother conversation too. But workplace bullying is something that applies to YouTube too, whether you all realize it as an audience or not. A lot of people, and you can see it now more so, maybe you take it more serious because you see more celebrities on YouTube creating podcasts and shows, just like you see the Pivot podcast. Nobody's going to tell them they're not professional. Nobody's going to tell them they're not doing the show. You didn't do it to Tyron Hall. You're not doing it to Don Lemon. You're not doing it to Joy Reid. You're talking about them. You're looking at their programs and you're treating them as professionals, and that what they are doing on YouTube and social media is something serious. And you're treating it that way. Shalom, Crystal. I didn't even see you down there. I didn't have the comments up. You're taking that seriously, right? I think that you have to keep that in mind, even with people who are not celebrities. You can, you can have the link, right? Let me share it in the chat in case you want to click it and come up. Yeah, people, you take that seriously, but there are a lot of people who are podcasting full time, and so when you see other content creators harassing and picking at other creators that are doing a show, these are people who are trying to do this for a living as well. So I would just say keep that in mind. And when peers are put on trial, like there's a lot of weaponization of people's stories online, and I don't like that either, because your story is your story, and I don't think that it there are stories we should vet everything, right? But I do think when it comes to talking about people's personal experiences, you don't get to tell them what they're feeling. You don't get to judge what they're being vulnerable about based on your life. So the question is not simply whether emotion is accepted, it's whose emotion is granted context. Who gets to have tears? So is it the greater level of celebrity you are, the more popular you are, the more your tears are accepted? Is it that if you are a woman, your tears are accepted? And I will say that I believe that black male tears are often first met with suspicion, interrogation, and ridicule in a way that their white male counterparts are not. I don't see when white men are crying and being vulnerable on TV, radio, or social media. I don't see them getting drugged the way people are dragging Clark. Maybe I don't watch enough TV, but it just doesn't look right to me. It looks like a diminishment of his humanity, right? And I say again, it led me to go back to this is why workers stay silent as well, because nobody wants to be picked apart and really ridiculed. When you know you're not going to get the support, when you know that everything you say is going to be questioned, and especially in a workplace situation, right, where it's you versus your supervisor, it's kind of like you versus the police on the street. The police are always going to get the benefit of the doubt. Your supervisor is always going to get the benefit of the doubt, despite the fact that we know all of these groups contain liars. Everything that is in the population is on the police department and is on a supervisory board or panel. They are human and they're all pulled directly from the same population. So the idea that just because you hold a position or a title, you are telling the truth, I think is absolutely ridiculous. Everybody should have to show and prove. You shouldn't just get to say it and it be treated as if it's automatically true. And through a scriptural lens, the scripture does not ask or whether grief is polished enough for public approval. It asks what responsibility we have towards the people who are hurting. We are here to comfort each other. We're supposed to be here to uplift one another. It says, weep with them that weep. Rejoice with them that do rejoice and weep with them that weep. That's Romans 12 and 15. Compassion is not a courtroom. And so that is how you all want to treat it. You want to decide who is worthy of compassion, who is worthy of having feelings and allowed to have a moment, right? But you don't want that for yourself. And Job was a great example of that because before he started critiquing him, right? His friends were fine, and sometimes that's where a lot of us go wrong when we're trying to comfort somebody who's going some. And I've been guilty of this myself. You you want to start analyzing. Well, let me tell you where you went wrong. Sometimes you just need to be there with somebody. So you'll notice when presence before judgment in Job 2:13, he says, so they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw the grief. His grief was very great. They just dwelt with him. They just abided with him. And sometimes that's all people need. If I didn't ask you for advice, sometimes like you can really just keep that to yourself. And then when they got to finally get to the point where they started to decide that they were going to let him know what was up, Job told him miserable. He called them miserable comforters. He said, I have heard many such things. Miserable comforters are you all. What I liked about this too, though, when you look at Job, they did eventually, they kept going in too, though, and one of them gave him some hard truths. That's the other thing about with your friends. And when we talk about seeking wise counsel, at some point, sometimes they're going to tell you things you don't want to hear, like, hey, man, okay, you wallowing in this. You don't know what God's reason for this was. So you need to get it together because there is a mourning period. There is a time where you get to mourn, and there is a time when you need to get on with it. So I really do think it is about balance. But I also think we have to keep in mind, what do you want for you? And so I want to try to give people what I would want for myself. And lastly, just remember that the scripture does not shame male tears. David in the book of David, 1 Samuel 30:4, then David and the people that were with him fled up, lifted up their voice, and wept until they had no more power. So him and the mighty men of valor that were with him, they wept. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with a man shedding tears. We go to Genesis 45:2, and he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of the Pharaoh heard. And then we have Jesus in John 11:35. Jesus wept. That's just the shortest verse there, but the whole purpose is to say that men are not supposed to express emotion, or they don't have a right to be upset and grieve. It's foolishness. God does not mock tears. So here's the question: are we comforting people? Or are we cross-examining them? And this Psalms 56:8, David says to the Most High, "Put thou my tears, are they not in thine book?" So God, not only does He hear our tears, He remembers them and He comforts us. And so I would just admonish you to have that same type of spirit when you're dealing with one another, when you're abiding with one another. Treat each other right. So we're just going to get right into it now. So earlier this week we listened to Cam Newton respond to what Shay said. And so to be fair, I said I was going to listen to what Shady said, the whole video. And this is where we talked about the trap of institutional loyalty. And we'll go back over this a little bit because I do want to revisit some of when we were talking about what happened to Clark, right? I don't know why. This is the wrong script. I mean, the wrong slide. But anyway, I'm going to get to the video because that's where we're going next anyway. So let me just remove that, add that. So here we go. And I'll just jump in where I want.
Being fired for ESPN, had his first episode of the Pivot Podcast. About Ryan Clark after being fired for ESPN, had his first episode of the Pivot Podcast and had some things to say. I'll let you guys take a listen right here.
Man, like this show, for 3 years, bro, we never shied away from any topic. We never shied away from tackling anything. We did this year because I knew I couldn't have no beef. I knew I couldn't respond to disrespect, right? I knew, for lack of a better word, I couldn't be too black.
So what he's saying is, even on his own personal podcast, they made sure they stayed away from certain topics or they tried to curtail them and stay in a certain lane. And I think a lot of us do that professionally when we're working in these spaces. And that's another issue that I had with some of the critique that came from Shady McCoy, is because I'm like, you're acting like you yourself did not conform in any way. Even criticizing Clark, I feel like it's almost strategic and performative itself. If we're going to judge everything and call it performative, are you auditioning for a slide on ESPN, right? Is that why to come after him the way you did? Was it your attempt to show them that you were safe? Because being safe didn't keep Fox News from Fox Sports from letting you go, and I just felt that.
What makes me sad is, even in trying to adjust to be at least more of what certain people wanted, they still fired me.
He also went on to, shed.
I'm gonna stop that too. When he said and this is where when we talked about in that slide about how performance does not protect you. There is no protection in institutional loyalty. So you could fall into that trap and thinking that title and when you compromise that you are going to gain some type of level ground or that you're going to be treated right, and you're not. Excellence is not protection. And I think that's something that we have to have an honest conversation about. And what I heard him saying was, hey, that I was giving it my all, doing everything I can, compromising even on my own personal platform to try to be what I thought that ESPN wanted me to be. And even in doing that, they still fired me. They still let me go.
Some tears here. I'll let you guys take a listen.
When I go home, and this kid, from the West Bank, is like so accepted in New Orleans now. Like I wouldn't change that. Never.
Holy shit.
All I ever wanted to do is be accepted.
Get the tissues, fellas.
That's where the disrespect started. It was like, get the tissues, fellas. And people just really criticizing him, saying that he wanted to be accepted. You all want to be accepted too. The idea of not being accepted, let's just keep it a being, is what drove Cain to kill Abel. And the Most High had to tell him, if you do as well, won't thou be accepted? But he didn't want to hear that. So, but I'm just saying.
So yeah, like that, I wouldn't change. If you ask me, probably the first Monday of football.
Yeah, I mean, he went on, obviously a very emotional moment there. Shady, we know you've had numerous takes on tears here in the Speakeasy. How do you feel about Ryan Clark crying after
All right, look, Prize Picks is America's #1.
We don't want no Prize Picks, bro. Thank you.
It's good to be right.
After getting fired,
After being fired, and then also just
bro,
talking about being
everybody been fired, dude. I mean, I can't tell you how he should, vent and show his emotion. So I mean, I probably wouldn't do this right here, but I mean, this is part of his lane. He's into what's the word? Clicks, likes, that's his thing.
See how dismissive it is. He's I probably wouldn't have done that. Be careful, because laughing is catching, and that was the old folks say. But just very dismissive, and I just think from one black man to another, this is not a good look. Because when you're looking at young men and women watching this, just seeing how you treat another black man says a lot to them. And then you wonder why we have this generation that is without natural affection.
It is about Ryan Clark. I mean, he's good at his craft. Like, you'll get another job. Everybody gets fired. You get cut. He been playing football. He was like undrafted. When he undrafted?
Undrafted.
He's been in this situation before. I mean, we've been technical, So I don't feel like bad. I mean, people get fired all the time. Shit. Acho, we just got released from another network. You know what I'm saying? Paul Pierce, all them dudes.
Yeah.
We all homies. I mean, and the thing is, like, being fired from a job is one thing, but when you get cut in football, you understand that route. You understand that life. So I don't feel bad with the tears and all that. You know what I'm saying? I think he's good enough. He's gonna get another job. And then all the other stuff. I mean, by being accepted, I don't know that. I don't know what he's. Like, I can't speak for that. You know what I mean? I always felt comfortable and secure in who I am. You know what I mean? Sometimes people.
Stop the cap. Like, people who walk around here acting like they've never wanted to be accepted. This is what's wrong. I personally think is what's wrong with a lot of us right now is we want to try to all act like we don't care. You care. That's why you do the things that you do. Because, listen, nobody wants to. You're not trying to face ostracism. You're not trying to be a total outcast in your job while it's screwed up and you don't like the way you're being treated. If you're perfectly honest, though, that's not what you would have chose for yourself. You would not have chose to be ostracized and put off to the side. But here's the thing. You're saying you don't care, but there is somewhere where you care about being accepted and not being accepted by the people who you love and care about and who you want to be around would hurt you too. So stop the cap.
My need to be accepted, but like I always look at people's patterns and where they come from. So his whole career has been like underdog fighting. So I guess it makes sense. You do want to get accepted. You know what I mean? I play great for a team. I still not the guy. I never, so I understand that. But I mean, I support him. I don't really know him like that. I support him. I just can't act like I'm so sad because like he ain't the only guy that got fired. There's a couple guys got fired. You know what I mean? I'm gonna fight that for all of them. Cam Newton got fired.
Yeah.
Cam is like, come on, Cam Newton. You know what I mean? So like, I'm sorry if I'm not as sad as y'all. You know what I mean? But the truth is, I don't know if I always can believe some of the stuff he say though. That's another thing. I remember way in the back we had I forget what year it was. I think it was a lockout, and he had somebody. This before social media was like a big thing. Somebody's recording him actually trying to get in the door. I'm thinking like, my man. For one, who the hell got the camera out there? And for two, it's a lockout. Like so. Being honest, I don't really know how like if he's serious or not. I know he's a like clickbait type dude. Even though like
so very
I don't know. I don't make it negative.
His integrity, questioning is sincere. And I think there is a time and place to do that. If you want to do that, if you feel like that is absolutely necessary. All I'm saying is, for our community, is it necessary for us to be dismissive and put each other on blast like that? That's what I'm asking. I don't know. Y'all let me know in the comment section. Do you think I'm reaching? Or should we be supporting each other as a community better than how we're showing up and doing it?
Right.
I'm gonna chime in.
But do you feel what I'm saying? Though? Sometimes, bro, there's some dudes that are internet people. He's one of them, and sometimes I'm not know if it's like if it's serious or not.
So I talked to Ryan after this, and I have a lot of thoughts. I see why people are up in arms about Ryan crying on camera because he cried after getting fired. But I think we have to really unveil Ryan didn't cry because he lost his job, in my mind, and based on communicating with him. Ryan was crying, I believe, because of both the gratitude that he felt from the love of so many people, along with, I think, the volatility of a lot of hate, a lot of love will lead you to an emotional place. But why I actually loved Ryan crying is because it exposed something that so many people do not deal with. I think we all have some inner child trauma that some people either go to therapy and work out, or other individuals just try to bury the entirety of their lives, and it finds its way out in other aspects of your life. You're either going to implode or you're going to explode, one of the two. And Ryan, I think in that moment was feeling maybe those childlike feelings that he's been dealing with or has to deal with. You think about, he says, I've always wanted to be accepted. That word always is a very heavy word. Always means since you was young and now you old. I don't know what Ryan has been through to lead him to that feeling of wanting to be accepted. Like Shady just said, undrafted player, ends up being a captain, plays 13 years, wins a Super Bowl, anchors a defense that people have talked about for decades to come. Always wanted to be accepted. That's something I believe that is a inner childhood, maybe trauma, if I may use that word. So the reason I actually appreciated the tears was because I think it displayed a reality that so many different individuals, particularly men, try to hide. But in that moment with Ryan, it just came out.
Did you feel bad for the other guys?
I think that is true. I think a lot of times we don't talk about those things, and everybody now, we just have to act like we're all just a Teflon Don, right? You just walk around here, you're not feeling anything. I don't care if nobody likes me, F everybody. But, and there are people I'm sure who genuinely feel that way because, again, I think we have pivoted to a point where we are past the point of people being thoughtful and careful about their neighbors and their brothers and sisters. And we are literally, when the Bible talks about how we were going to deal with a generation of natural affection, this is where we are. And we see it because even the killing of kids is acceptable in a way that it wasn't before. Watching people talking about they smoking on somebody's baby pack is crazy. But this is where we are. Dancing on people's graves, defacing people's graves. Like, we are at a time where we just don't give a damn, and it shows. And I think some of this dismissive attitude towards one another just contributes to it.
Other guys got fired too, man.
I don't feel bad that Ryan got fired. I feel bad how they fired him. I just got fired last year. Yeah, and wasn't nobody crying no tears for me. So I don't feel bad that Ryan got fired. It happens. Ryan, it's like it happens. People get fired. I got fired.
Not just talk about like this how he was fired. They fired him in a way to humiliate him. They meant to humiliate and demean him in a way that what some people were saying was what was the other guy's name? I can't think of his name. That he had just had the little dust up with the white guy that got upset because he told him he was a non-player. So from what I'm understanding, some of the top execs were like, was a buddy of this guy. And so it was kind of on some get back type
people
of
get
deal.
Cut.
Bro,
it happens. And he's incredible at his craft.
He's
but
good at his craft.
It's the name of the game. I don't like how they did it. I also don't like 2-5. It's interesting. A bunch of women are celebrating his emotions and showing the tears and all those things. And then you look, there's a reason my video got 8.8 million views. You look at the man is, you soft, you weak, you crying, you soft, you weak, you crying.
I don't know if it's that. I just, for me, it's some dudes that like, guys that cry, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's genuine and they mean it. But what I'm saying is I don't know. I've been watching for so long. I'm not sure if I could believe it or not. And sometimes I think in this media game, in the social media game, you meet so many people. It's like, all right, is he genuine or not? And I think there's some guys that do things.
Yeah. So I will say this again. So how do you determine that? What are you using as your metric to determine if his tears are sincere or not? So again, to me, this just goes back to the dismissal of other men's emotions. But then you all will come and you will sit online and harass a bunch of women about not caring about a man's feelings. Well, she said, following your lead. There you go. Continue.
For attention and clickbaits, you know. I'm not saying that Ryan does all the time, but he does a lot of that. So I don't know if these tears is for, I mean, you know, I can't make something of these tears or not. I will say this though. I think Ryan's incredible at his job. I think he'll get another one. You know, And then the whole like acting black stuff. What are we talking about?
Well, I think,
come on, man.
I think there's a couple things. And I was thinking about this, Kieran, even like, ESPN, did Ryan get fired because he was too pro-black? I think you could say in part.
No.
Here's why I think you could say in part. No. Because I think 2-5, some of his pro-black opinions led him to stepping in hot water. Most notably, the Kyron Lacey one. Yeah. Kyron Lacey, young black man, LSU. Correct me if I'm wrong. Off the top of my head, don't want to do any incorrect information. I believe he takes his own life. He was facing prison time because there was a former military person who died in a car accident that Kyron Lacey was believed to have caused. Footage came out that showed, wait a second, Kyron Lacey, you may not have actually caused this. Ryan, along with Scott Van Pelt, Pat McAfee, they go on their different public ESPN platforms and they call out the Louisiana Police Department saying, hey, Kyron didn't cause this, shame on you.
Thank you, Crystal. Crystal says not reaching at all. We are the hardest on each other and we don't show each other any grace. Not at all. And I feel like we give other communities way more grace than we give our own. Like, just, do you see like the cross-examining, the examining, we need to investigate it. Is his tear sincere? Is it really because he was black? And if this black man is telling you his experience from the inside, and he's telling you that it was because he was too black, you don't believe your brother? So here's my thing. Well, when you tell us something, when are we supposed to believe you, and how much of what you say should we believe?
Mm-hmm. Well, more footage came out that showed, unfortunately, Kyron Lacey did indeed cause this. Pat had to apologize. Van Pelt had to apologize. Ryan had to apologize. They're eating up ESPN airwave time apologizing to a police department because of an incorrect, gigantic claim in this world we live in. I think if you're an ESPN executive, you're looking at Scott Van Pelt and saying to yourself, Van Pelt's not doing that on his own. You're looking at Pat McAfee and saying to yourself, Pat McAfee ain't doing that on his own. Van Pelt don't speak out about issues, let alone black issues. McAfee don't really speak out about issues, let alone black issues. So I think if you're an ESPN executive, you're probably looking and saying, okay, we out here making hay about these black issues incorrectly on SportsCenter, our biggest daily program, 2.5-3 million people watching, levying apologies to police departments because we're falsely accusing them of profiling a black man. So, I think that's a gigantic issue. So you think
that I guess he maybe influenced them to do it?
Yeah, I think he influenced them to because and this is just my guess.
I disagree with that. I disagree because
you disagree with what part?
I don't think that he influenced them to speak up about it. I think Pat McAfee do whatever he want to do. He's bigger than all them dudes.
Here's what I'm saying.
Okay, Scott.
That's your brother.
He's been big, like Ryan ain't.
Is it just me, or does it seem like you just have a lot of understanding and belief in what Pat McAfee say, but you ain't giving your energy. It's giving. I'm telling you. Let me just say it's giving some shoe shine, but go.
It was on.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he got his contract after or before? After that. Ryan. I think
redid his contract. But I think before then.
So what I'm saying is, if it was that bad, why are we going to redo your deal?
Here's why I think that 2-5 is. I recall the first time Ryan called out the police department on Van Pelt's show. If a black man is going to say something next to this white man on a show, the white dude can't just ignore the claim. Van Pelt also went out there and said, like, he co-signed it. He co-signed it because Ryan next to him said it. He co-signed it.
I think that's another way of just getting me some attention. That's what that's my opinion. Some stuff that Cam talks about and the way he moves around. If he said something like that, I might buy that. I don't buy it from him though. That's what you mean.
But isn't this crazy? Like, do y'all hear this? Like, for the white guy, you got all the benefit of the doubt for him, and he say what he want to say, and you auditioning. Just say you auditioning, because right now it's just giving. I don't believe the black man, but whatever Pat said, it was great.
From what you're saying, I watched Ryan for years on ESPN, right? And some stuff he touches on, right? Mm-hmm. And then sometimes he don't. But I don't think that is a big deal. Where it's, oh my God, like a lot of his issues, I don't think they even bring that stuff up. when he talks about different racial issues. I don't think that's ever a problem with Ryan.
You had a thought, Kieran?
Well, the Kyron Lacey situation I think is different though too, just because one, it's a huge story in sports. It's a story that resulted in a young man taking his life, and it's also a story that was defended by his lawyer by putting out that video, and it could be kind of misconstrued. So then the police department ended up afterwards having to put out another view. I just don't think that's something to hold over or judge Ryan Clark's.
And let's keep it a bean. The police department is being sued by Kyron's family because of that body cam footage that come out showing the police lying and tampering with the witnesses. So let's wake that up.
Outlooks on race politics on ESPN. I think he wasn't shy to make to speak out on things that he deemed were racial, or the actions that he felt had racial intent. And I think because of that, he got labeled racist by numerous people. It became kind of a bigger story based off of like the online reception of him. But I also don't think anything that he was doing when you watch the majority of Ryan Clark's content on ESPN was in any way bad,
That's what I'm saying.
racially.
No,
I think it wasn't something that just became a part of every single episode.
I'm telling you, I'm going to have to go back and do the Stranger Danger show, because when we're talking about the police department, I am really tired as a person who wore a uniform for over 22 years. You do not know these officers. You don't know us. You didn't know me. You didn't know me. You, for all I know, for all people knew who would thank you for your service. I could have had kids tied up in my basement. I could have had body parts in the freezer. You don't know these people, and why people keep acting like because somebody is wearing a police uniform, they are telling the truth. It is crazy. I have been in just local muni court and had a judge throw the police out of the courtroom for coming in there just blatantly lying. So, like, let's just stop it. Police are people too. They're not magicians. They're not magically delicious. They're not special. Police are pulled directly from the population. There are liars, thieves, molesters, murderers, rapists, drug dealers. Everything that is in the population is on the police department, in government, on those benches, in every human institution, church, school. You have these people. They are there. These are the people in your neighborhood. They literally are the people that you meet when you're walking down the street. They're the people that you meet each day. And I'm just saying.
Episode that I was watching of him.
But here's what y'all. I work for that company, right? And I hate saying like, well, I did this and y'all didn't. No, I'm not. So I'm saying that.
Yeah. I'm
just saying that to say like, click on the what I just sent you on the. I want you to pull up that Ryan Clark tweet. I need y'all to see what I'm about to show you all, so y'all can be the decision makers. Wherever you're doing, however you're watching, wherever you're watching, I need y'all to chime in on that. This what I'm about to show y'all, especially in the chat. The first one here, not the second one. When you're dealing with these ESPN decision makers, they do not want to ruffle feathers. And now, if you are going to go on Monday Night Football, their gigantic platform after the game, after 26 or so million people are watching, and you're going to use the airtime, I have no issue with it. I'm just wondering if executives may have had issue with this, what we're about to show you all. I haven't rewatched this in advance. Kieran and I, live show, doing this in real time. Rome, let's take the sound. Let's take the sound.
Clear space for this.
1 second, please.
This is important.
Yes, guys, Kyron Lacey was supposed to be in the NFL. Kyron Lacey was accused of something and being investigated for something that he didn't do, and he died having to live with the guilt and the consequences of a guilty man knowing he was innocent. It recently was discovered that he was 72 yards away from the crash, that police and state policemen tried to coerce and doctor and use ways to manipulate statements that put this young man behind bars. They changed his joy, they changed his life, and eventually he took his own life. This was supposed to be a career. He was supposed to be here. At some point throughout his career, I would expect to have said his name. So I'm going to say his name tonight.
Amen.
Kyron Lacey was innocent. Kyron.
Now, a you as a black man, because every I get that no, that back then, he took moment. I really said, should have been in my opinion, took over from him. Okay, I believe I'm back. I don't know what point StreamYard decided to drop me off of here, but that was crazy. So let's see if we can get video back on screen. I was going to say, I'm always cool whenever there's one of us that's going to stand up and say it, speak it. Uh, it's always right time. Share screen again. Take it back. Listen, I am going to leave that right there because I have no idea what is going on with StreamYard. Listen, why StreamYard did not want to let me finish playing this video. However, we get the point. We got to listen to it. We heard the argument. I'm still going to tell you this, that I feel like Black people need to do better about supporting one another in media, in politics, in everything. And I'm not saying support somebody when they're wrong, but everything that Ryan Clark said, especially in regards to Cameron Lacey, was a fact. And he deserved to be spoken for. He deserved to have his name spoken, and he deserved to be stand up for it. And no, the dominant culture and their mainstream media is not. They don't want to hear about Black trauma. They don't want to hear Black stories. And it's a shame that telling the truth about something that the police did to someone is viewed as being anti-police, because I don't think telling the truth is anti-police. If you're engaged in misconduct, you're engaged in misconduct, and it should be called out. So that's something else to talk about for another day. But thanks for watching. Shabbat Shalom and in this Sabbath. I hope you all had a beautiful, peaceful, restful day, and I will catch you all next time. Shalom.